Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Franca. Franca is a digital marketer and advocate for Indigenous. She is the founder of the Speak Ekpeye Fluently Language Initiative, an NGO committed to the teaching, revitalization, and promotion of the Ekpeye language. Franca, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Elle.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you and learn more about your initiative and learn more about your language and your culture. I like to start each episode with the same question, which is what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
Okay, my first language is Ekpeye and English. I say this too because I think while growing up in the home, my mom spoke Ekpeye to me like partly, but I know my Ekpeye was very rusty while growing up. But then in the neighborhood where we grew up in, we spoke English, Pidgin English to be to be exact. Yeah, so that was what I spoke while growing up. So I think these two were like my first language to both of them together. So Ekpeye and Pidgin. While growing up, I think I've learned Igbo. I understand Igbo very well, and I can speak basic Igbo. I think it's because of where the community where I grew up from. There were a lot of Igbo speaking people around this area, so I hatched a few of the phrases. And today, I think if I go to the marketplace to get something, because I mean, using language is a hack here to get something cheaper if you want to negotiate in the Nigerian market. So, I mean, if I go to the market and I see that, oh, the trader is an Igbo person, I just try to flex my Igbo speaking skills, and I think I get things at a good rate. Yeah, because of that. Yeah. So Igbo is one language I have learned, and I am also trying to learn Yoruba. I mean, I've always loved the Yoruba language, so I'm trying to learn Yoruba. And currently, since I am in northern Nigeria, I am also trying to learn Hausa, although it has not been quite easy.
Why do you think that learning Hausa has not been easy so far?
I think it's not related to, I think it's not from the same family with the Ekpeye language, because I think somehow Ekpeye and Igbo are like in the same cluster of language families. But I think Hausa is different, kind of. So I think it feels quite heavy to try to understand and also trying to speak it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So so you're not getting the same discounts at the Hausa market that you're getting at the Igbo market?
No, 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 not entirely. I mean, I just know take take this. I know food. I mean, it's just I can't make a complete sentence. No, I can't.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
tiny bits of vocabulary.
So when you were growing up, I know that Nigeria is home to so many languages. What languages were you exposed to maybe out in your community? And the people around you, what languages were they speaking or communicating in primarily?
Mostly in Pidgin English, which is a form of not the English, but more like the localized Nigerian Pidgin. Yeah, because I grew up in that community. So, but in school we spoke English, but at home it was more. You have people who speak Pidgin English, yeah, entirely. Then, with my parents and my siblings, my mom, my mom spoke Ekpeye, but like people around me were we have more of Pidgin, and then we moved to a more animal speaking communities. We're part of River State, but we have more of the Igbos in this place. So I think that was where I started learning Igbo because we have a lot of them around here. So yeah, this was the language I had where
Where is Ekpe primarily spoken? Where in Nigeria?
Ekpeye is spoken in Ahoda East and Ahoda West local government areas of River State. So River State is in the south region of Nigeria.
Let me look at a map so I can keep up with you.
So if you are looking at the map,
Hmm.
down south, you would see rivers, then you would see Port Harcourt, then you would see Ahoda.
Okay, south, south, very
Yeah.
south, coastal. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool. Tell me about Ekpe. Tell me about the language. Tell me, how are we using the language? How is the language constructed? Is it tonal? How are we forming sentences? What are some hallmarks of the language or anything about Ekpeye that you find interesting and that you'd love to share with us?
Ekpeye is a very expressive language, as with most African languages. The language is very expressive. So if I want to express my emotions, for example, I want to say how happy I am, I can say "Fima Tomeluno." So literally, if I want to translate that word for word, I would say I can feel the taste of my heart in my tongue. Like I can feel how that I can feel how happy I am. I can feel it, like I can taste it, right? So I mean you can't translate this literally when you want to do it in English Ekpeye translation. So it's very descriptive. So it's the same with many phrases we have. And yes, it is a tonal language. So we have the low tone, we have high tone, we have the falling tone and the rising tone. So yeah, it's a tonal language, and the tones are very important, especially if you're trying to learn the language. I mean, you could see a word and without the tonal marks, you can get it wrongly
Mm,
because we can have the word with the same spelling, exact spelling, but when the difference comes when you use the right tones. Let's say okay, OGE. OGE. So OGE is OGE and OGE. So this other OGE is more like it's not originally a pay. I mean, we borrowed that from the English, but it's used to say time. OGE. OGE. You're trying to describe time, to tell time. Then OGE. That's machete. So if you're just reading this on paper without the tones, I mean, you could mistake one for the other, right? So yeah, it's a tonal language, and yeah, it's a very interesting language. And although most people say Ekpeye is Igbo, Ekpeye is not Igbo. I mean, I think because of the interactions we've had with the Igbos for a very long time, it has influenced the language to some point.
mhm.
Like this example I gave now, originally we don't use oge. I mean, oge is an Igbo word for time. So we can use ekele. Originally it's ekele. So ekele is time, but most persons they use oge.
Since we know that there is a relation in the language family between Igbo and Ekpeye, is there a lot of mixing of the two? And I guess a better question to ask is, do a lot of Ekpeye people also speak Igbo?
Yes, I think so. I mean,
Oh,
my grandmoms, both grandmoms from my maternal and paternal side, both spoke Igbo. Sometimes I was wondering how they were so good. I mean, my grandmom traded in the market, so I think she had this constant interaction with them. So I can say, okay, she picked it up from there. But I mean, it's just I feel if you're an IPA person, it's quite easy to grasp Igbo. I mean, the language becomes so light, you can pick a few things because at some point you can point some similarities. So I think, yeah, it's easy for an Ekpeye person to understand Igbo, not
mhm.
necessarily to speak it, but to understand, yeah, you could be in a room where they're having conversations in Igbo and you tend to understand what's going on.
I see.
Yeah. Today, most of our names, I won't say they are original Ekpeye names because we are having this debate, like,
Ooh,
yeah. So when I share something on our social media platform, like some days I dedicate it to a painting. So I post a name and the name has Chi. So you see somebody in the comments say, "Oh no, this is Chi is not a pair. Chi is evil," which is true, right? So let's say a name like Chilowe, which is God brings forth. Those names with Chi, and you see a lot of Igbo names have. If you're looking at Igbo names, you see Chinedu, you see Chioma, right? So
right.
now we
Yeah.
have the same things with Ekpeye name. So we have that Chi. So the prefix is Igbo, but the other part of it is Ekpeye completely. I mean, an Igbo person can't even tell you what that name means, right? So we've been having this debate. So if you put something like that online and someone will say, "Oh no, this is not an original Ekpeye name," right? Aside some few similarities that you would see. I mean, Ekpe is an entirely different language from Igbo. I mean, an Igbo person can't understand me when I speak Ekpe, if I'm speaking Ekpe, yes. But I can understand them.
That's so cool. It's like your superpower.
Yeah, it is.
So tell me with and I don't want to just make this about comparing because we want to make sure that Ekpe is recognized for its singularity and what it is. But I'm curious to know between Igbo and Ekpe, like where are we seeing the differences? Is it in vocabulary? Is it in the structure of the language? Is it in the tonality? Like, are there more tones in one than in the other? And I asked this also because you said there are people who think that it's part of the Igbo language, it's part of the same language, but how is it distinct in that way?
In our vocabulary, we have original Ekpe words. Let's say out of 100, I could say you could find 10% of Igbo words in the complete Ekpe vocabulary. I mean, we call pots the same thing. We refer to pot as ite. We refer to it as ite. For plates, we call it epele. They call it epere. Just the difference of R and L. So I mean, you can see some tiny little similarities like this, and then if you look at other part of our vocabulary, you see something completely different. I think that part will maybe just the influence of a bigger language in a small language community. That's what I would say. Aside that, I mean, we have a different structure. The language is structured differently. So in our alphabet, we have 37. We use the Latin script. We have 37 alphabets and 9 vowels. I think, not really sure, but I don't think that's the same with the Igbo alphabet if you take a close look at it. So, and also the tones, we have our tones are slightly different, although we have some similarities. Yeah, but we have some differences too in the tones.
And we also have Pidgin English in the mix, I imagine. So how do we code switch between Pidgin English and Ekpe? How do we combine those languages together when we're communicating? Does that happen?
Okay, that happens a lot, especially if if you're not so fluent in the language. I mean, it has happened to me a couple of times. So I think someone has mentioned it to me before that, oh, if I can't say a complete sentence in Ekpe, I just switch. So I could start a sentence in Ekpe, and maybe because at some point I was just confused on what to say or I don't know how to communicate that in Ekpe because I'm so fluent speech. So it happens a lot with people that still trying to get better in the language or who are not really fluent. So you see them speak half of half of the sentence is in Ekpe, and maybe they complete it up with English or Pidgin English.
When you have terms that are coming into a language, as our lives are changing, as society's changing, how do we see those making its way into Ekpe? Are they coming in with new Ekpe words, or are they coming in as loan words from English or maybe from Igbo or from another language?
Though presently they are still coming in. I mean, they are coming in as loan words from English. Yeah. So I think uh, we've not had would I say a gathering to decide, okay, these words, let's assign equal names to these words yet, right? So when we have, okay, for example, artificial intelligence, I mean, we don't have any equal word for that. So if you want to describe that, you still have to use English or maybe a very long description. I mean, if I want to explain what artificial intelligence is to my grandfather, I would do a lot of describing, right? But it may not just capture it as a single word. So we haven't we haven't would I say assigned a clear words to these new words, these emerging words today. No, we haven't. I remember it took a long time for me to get the actual Ekpeye word for window
Hmm.
that I've been asking. So while teaching yeah. So while teaching vocabulary on my page, I think someone asked, and then I had to consult. I consulted with my team members. At first, I didn't get it, and someone gave me an explanation why there is no word for it at that time, or maybe why there won't or there may not be a word for it. Because later on, I found out that it actually had a word. So the explanation she gave was, okay, back then, the kind of building architecture we had in Ekpe land, there was no windows. I mean, the houses had no windows. It's just high walls, and you would see some spaces between the house and the roof, so the thatch roofs then. So in that building type, there was actually no window. So there was no need to have a name for it. Right? So, but recently, I think it was this year or last year, the question popped up again. And I remember asking it. I asked in our group, okay, what's the Ekpeye word? Does anyone know the Ekpeye word for window? And yes, somebody provided the answer. And I was like, oh, so this had a name. So I don't know if it was new or the name has always been there. But I mean, when the question came up in the past, I didn't know what to say. But now someone provided an answer, and the name is Utopo.
Utopo.
Uh, Ukpopio. Sorry,
Upopio.
Ukpopio. Ukpopio.
Upopio.
Yes,
Upopio.
Ukpopio. Yeah, so that's like an opening, a small opening you make of a hole. It could be a bottle. Ukpopio. The name in itself describes that. Just like maybe you take a bottle and put some holes in it. So it's just like that act. But yeah, so that's the name that was provided for it. So Ukpopio. So I think going forward, because uh, this responsibility lies on so we have a body in Ekpe that's working with the language. I mean, they were translating the Bible to Ekpe language. So we have like an Ekpe language body for it. So I think it's going to be like everybody comes together and say, okay, let's let's give names to these. Let's put our heads together. What words in Ekwe could describe this? And maybe everybody just adopts it and we start using it. So I think that's a way to go that we could use to, get names for most of these new technologies or new words.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about revitalization and tell me about the endangered status of Ekpe. Like what's going on? Why is it happening?
Ekwe is not, I think it's threatened, not completely endangered at this point, but uh, would be would be in the next decade or two, because currently, if you look at the speaking population, you see that it's tilted more towards the older population, right? So I mean, as a young person, I you rarely find people, especially those who don't grow up from home, who you can have a complete conversation with in Ekpeye. I mean, you could just say Ebelenio, Eyuma, and then the conversation moves from Ekpeye to English or from Ekpeye to Pidgin English, as the case may be, right? So I think that is why we started what we're doing, what I'm doing with my organization. I mean, it started off as an interaction I had with someone in school that I was trying to communicate with Ekpeye, and the person I was trying to communicate with wasn't really fluent and they didn't even understand to start with. So it's different when you understand but can't respond back to me in a way, but then you don't understand completely. So I just saw it as, oh, I mean, there are many people like this that can't speak and don't even understand a place and don't have an avenue to even learn to start with. So that's why we started the Speak Ekpeye Fluently Language Initiative. So I mean, you have people like this, a lot of them. So and also in the family, in Ekpeye homes, I will use my family as example. So thank God for my mom. I mean, she did a lot of the speaking to us than my dad. I mean, I could remember very well most of the time my father communicated with us in English, but I think my mom was the one always, you're back home. She was not always taking it. And again, when we traveled back to Ekpeye's community, so maybe during Christmas or during holidays, when we went back home and we had people that we were speaking to. So, I mean, we had to learn somehow. But most persons don't even get the opportunity to learn, probably because maybe their parents don't speak to them, or maybe one of their parents, just one of the parents is Ekpeye. Maybe the father married someone not from Ekpeye. And I mean, and most times the children are mostly with the mom, and the mom doesn't speak Ekpeye. So, I mean, it's difficult for such child to be exposed to the language. And again, when they are not growing up, maybe in Ahoda, I mean, this is that where Ekpe is spoken, the community where Ekpe is spoken. So such instance makes one not to learn at all. So you don't speak and maybe you don't understand. So I mean, this is the case for most young persons today. And then you go back to the community, the Ekpe speaking communities like Ahoda, Sound, for example, and you still find the same thing. I mean, so it's different when you're not living, maybe you're living in a city like Lagos, or you're not even living in Nigeria. But then you go back home, like the community, and they speaking English, right? So I mean, it's start wondering what's going on and what does the future look like if you can't like have a proper conversation in a day, right? So yeah, that's where we are currently, and I mean, if a lot of young people are able to learn and embrace the language, then yes, we will speak. And also, let me add this, there's also the case of, would I say, language shaming? Because you find out that, okay, the people that can actually speak, most persons are not proud of speaking the language in public. I know Ekwe is a minority, right? So sometimes some persons feel, oh, I don't want to be seen speaking Ekpe. It's not cool. So we just have that impression. And yes, so they feel they're not confident speaking Ekpe in public spaces. I mean, so these also affect the language. And yeah, so that's I would say partly on the part of the speakers. And then some persons are actually shamed. Okay, for those who are trying to learn, who don't know but are trying to learn. So try to learn and you're being shamed that you're not speaking it the right way. Now you're being shamed by your community members. What are you saying? That's not the right way to say it. You're pronouncing it wrongly. I had that experience while I was growing up too. So there was one holiday I went back home. I know this person didn't mean it, but I mean I took it then back then I took it the wrong way. So the person he was correcting me in love. I mean it was an elder, of course. So I mean most of them get pissed off when you come back home and you're speaking English and you can't communicate to them in a clear. So I had one comment then. I was like, why can't you speak your language very well? Because then I wasn't really so fluent. So then I took it wrongly. But later on, I mean I was still a kid then. So later on I realized that oh this person was actually correct, like was pointing me to the right path, like that I have to speak my language, right? And so, I mean, most persons won't take it that way. These a couple of other experiences it could point to the direction that oh this language is like this, and if action is not taken, if everybody doesn't make it a priority to speak or be intentional about it, you say that oh we may lose it eventually.
Mhm. Where do you think that the shame comes from people not wanting to speak the language, and what language are they preferring to communicate in?
In Nigeria today, we have over 500 languages, and we just have three that are recognized as the major languages. I mean, out of 500, three are recognized, which is Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, right? So people tend to, and I mean, these language groups have millions of speakers, unlike other um, other languages that has just small clusters. So people, you see that people tend to tilt towards the bigger groups, the bigger language groups. I mean, they feel, oh, I don't know how, would I say would I say it's because of the influence on, yeah, media or what they see in the community, but people tend to move towards the bigger language groups, right? So they feel, oh, this is the right thing. I mean, okay, let's try this way. Most persons want to learn French, want to learn Spanish, but not Nigerian languages, right? Same thing if you bring it back home in Nigeria. So most persons feel like, oh, I would rather speak Yoruba, or I'd rather speak Hausa than speak my language. I mean, someone has told me this before, that who Ekpeye help. So that's in speaking like, what's the benefit of speaking Ekpeye? I'll be like, come on, it's your identity, right? But someone has said that. So I mean, who Ekpeye help. So I mean, if you're speaking a language that is in the minority, you feel like, oh, what's the economical benefit of speaking my language? Why do I have to speak Ekpeye? Where is Ekpeye used? And you start getting this kind of question. So I mean, people feel that way. One time I was having a video recording session on campus. That was last year. I was just amongst some group of young people, and I just posed this question. Not a formal interview, so we were just having a conversation. And I asked somebody, what language do you speak? The person spoke a reverse language. So I asked her, okay, can you speak the language? She said no. Okay, I said, why can't you speak the language? She said, nothing, that she doesn't even have interest. And I said, oh, okay. Would you learn Igbo, or would you learn Yoruba, or would you learn? I mentioned other languages that are well known, prominent Nigerian language. And he said yes. So where is this coming from? Why not your language? Why do you prefer these other languages? Right? So I don't know if it's because of the dominating nature of these languages, or because I mean they are more dominant in our society today. So people want to move. I mean, everybody wants to join how do they say it? People want to join the winning team or the moving train, kind
Mm-hmm.
of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the kind of notion most people have. So that's why I think they have that shame. I mean, why would you be ashamed of speaking your language? I mean, especially in public. So you see, because of that, so most persons don't even think that, oh, I actually have to learn my language. No.
There's a lot to unpack in that. There's a lot to think about there.
Yeah, it is.
And I think about it too as a not Nigerian person who's not living in Nigeria. Like even from where I sit, if someone had asked a question like name, Nigeria has 500 languages, name four of them. Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba would be at the top of anybody's list, I think. So I think it's so important like like you said, why would you not want to speak your language? It's important to recognize your language among these languages that get more publicity or they're well known even outside
Mm.
of Nigeria and outside of West Africa. Um, what are some things that you've been able to do to, well, you know what? I'm going to ask that question later. Right now, I'm going to ask you the people the people who have been coming to you who want to learn Ekpeye right now. Obviously these people are not affected by, well, maybe they are, but maybe they want to come back and speak their language. But I want to know, like, what are the reasons that people have been connecting with you and wanting to learn Ekpeye, and how have you been able to go about helping them on their language journey?
Okay, so I think one of the major reasons why people want to learn Ekpeye is, I mean, to establish this connection to their roots, right? To know themselves better, where they are from. I mean, their identity, because language is a key part of one's identity. So, yeah, this is the reason why most persons want to learn, and also to be able to communicate better with their family, right? I mean, most of us have grandparents, and who you can't communicate with in English. I mean, they may not understand. They understand, but I mean, it's you want to speak to them in Ekpeye. It's way more better. You feel the connection more. To connect better to your roots, your people. To be able to communicate with your people in their language. Yeah, it's one of the motivating factors for most persons to learn Ekpeye.
Yeah. And the people who are coming to you, how are you able to teach them? Tell us about some of the ways that you're teaching the language, that you're sharing the language with them.
We started a WhatsApp group. And I can remember I just reached out to a few persons. I reached out to some persons on Facebook and some close friends. And I said, oh, let's come together and teach people who cannot speak. So I remember reaching out to about 6 persons. We came together, created a WhatsApp group. I mean, the thing was just not well planned. I mean, it was just an idea I had, and I just jumped on it and wanted to start teaching immediately. So I created some lesson outline and said, okay, we're going to this lesson, and we just sent out links. And I mean, people shared the link a lot. That the WhatsApp group was filled up. Then I think the WhatsApp limit was 280, so it was filled up, and we couldn't admit more persons. And I mean, the chat came on. Yeah, they would send text and then record, and people would learn. And I mean, people appreciated it a lot. I was like, oh, people have been meaning to have something like this. That was just how it all started. And now, since then, we've been having series of classes. And recently, that was last year, we created a course, so you don't have to wait until maybe when we have a crash course for you to learn. So we created a course on 7000languages.org. So we have an Ekpeye language course there. So you could just go and learn at your own pace. You have vocabulary, you have simple phrases, so you just sign up on the platform. It's free and just start learning. So aside that, so on our social media, we use social media a lot. I mentioned something about the big languages having publicity and everybody wants to go there. So social media is a very powerful tool. I mean, yes, it's a very powerful tool. So I think people are happy to see that they can connect with their language on social media. They can, oh, that's my language. I mean, oh, and this is so cool. When you start having reactions like that, these people that were not proud at then to identify, oh, I speak Ekwe. I mean, you can now come up boldly and say, yes, this is my language. And you see people start sharing your content too. So I mean, social media is very, very powerful, and you can use it to change the narrative, right? So yes, so what we do with us on our social media platforms is simple vocabulary. So like the window word I talked about, we shared it on social media. Oh, this is the word for window, and I mean people learn that. So just simple, small chunks like this is a good way for people to learn. And also we share some motivating um posts. So I mean we inspire people to, oh, you see, you can speak Ekwe, even if you're not good at it. I mean, you can just speak. You get better when you can speak. So yes, so these are the ways we've been able to teach. We also have a website where you can get Ekwe language resources, and from time to time we'll be uploading blogs about hair culture and yeah, what you have. Yes, so that is it.
I love that. I love that so much. Can you let us know where we can find you online and where we can access the resources that you and your team and your organization have worked so tirelessly to create?
Hey, you can find us on www.speakekpayfluently.com, and you can also follow us on social media, on Instagram, the Ekpeye Language Hub, on Facebook, the Speak Ekpeye Fluently Language Initiative.
I will share links to those platforms in the show notes for this episode so that people who want to get in touch and people who want to start their Ekpe learning journey can just click those links and get started right away.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the culture. I want to talk about some cultural things and some things that are meaningful to Ekpeye people. Tell us about, what are we wearing? What are we celebrating? What are we looking forward to during the year? What do we, how do we go about our lives in day to day in Ekpeye land? Tell me all that good stuff.
Eta. So eta is wrestling. So it's part of the Ekpe culture. So I think by the end of this month or next month, it usually happens during the rainy season. So the rains just started. All right. So we have the ETA. The ETA season is coming up. So it's a wrestling match. So people gather in different communities, in different Ekpe communities. There you have people gather together in the town square or the market square. So there are drums, um, the young, mostly young boys. It starts with young boys, then goes over to the older men. So people come, they come out in a wrestling match. So there are drums and music playing, and you know, so let me describe how it happens. So a young boy would come out and contest with someone out of the ring. So there's a ring of people that are, dancing around. And then when following the tune of the drum, so the drums indicates when it's time to like actual match. So somebody will pick his counterpart and the rest will. So if your back touches the ground, if you're brought down, the other person wins and then goes on to compete with the next person. And that is just like test of strength, right? So that's for the wrestling match. It happens every year. And in my community, Ehoda, it happens. We do this every market day. So there's a market day. We have a
Mhm.
market day in the fair calendar week. So on the market day, people from different communities come to Ahoda. We call it Ayoshi Ahoda. Come to Ahoda, the market with their goods, um, maybe farm produce, and come to sell. So the market is full at that day because you have people from different places and also some person from towns come to the market to like shopping. So on every market day for the exact season, it happens on the market day. So in the evening, probably from 4 p.m., people go to the community square and have the wrestling match. So after the exact season, we have the Ogwekwe. We have the Ogwekwe. So it's a festival. We have during the festival, families sit together and they tell stories and share food. So it's usually in the night. So the families will sit together in their family hall, um, with drinks, palm wine, maybe roasted goats, and then accompanied with music and drums. I mean, all these festivals, they are usually drums and music. So people come, tell stories, and they dance. So at the end of the festival, yeah, at the end of the festival, or in the beginning of the festival, you have young girls, young maidens. Although today is not commonly practiced as before, so young girls usually like go around the community singing and dancing, clothed in our apparel. But so that's for the Ogbepe. We also have another interesting festival, which is the Owu. So this is the masquerade where people put on masks. We have two of these sorts. So we have the Omukele and we have the Owu. So the Omukele is mostly the headgear is usually that of aquatic animals. So the headgear is usually like that. But for Owu, the headgear could be that of animals or depicting humans. So these are like more of the Owu festivals we have, but Omukele and Owu are quite different because of the nature of it. So for that of the Owu and now I'm speaking from my community. In my community, which is Ehoda, um, we usually have this festival. We usually have it every year. So it happens at the end of the year, the end of December every year. So you have this, people come together and then there's this display. So they are different. We have a lot of these masquerades, I mean. So but one of them is very scary. We call it the Omumadube. That's like the most scary we have. I remember when I was growing up, if whenever that particular masquerade comes on stage, I mean, you have to run. It's very scary. Yeah. And yeah, it's a very scary masquerade. And I think that's one of our best. So Omumadube, the name means one who kills to live. So this this masquerade comes on stage with this, it's very scary, then comes with a machete, and yeah, these are some of our festivals. It's really interesting, and I'm also looking forward to being on ground for this year. I mean, I've missed it. I wasn't present for that of last year. I always look forward to it.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
I love a festive community. There's so much going on and so much to look forward to. And I have so many questions now. I was trying to write while you were talking. I want to know about the masks and I want to know about the wrestling. So let's start with wrestling because you talked about that first. So the wrestling is, you said it's young boys to older men. So this is the boys, they're picking their opponent to wrestle with, and then the men are picking their opponent to wrestle with. How do they choose who to who to wrestle with? Like, what are you looking for as an opponent? Are you looking for someone of a certain body type or someone of a certain agility level? And how does that work? Do you know?
Okay, I haven't wrestled before, but from what I've watched, so from viewing, so you want to look at, so if you're choosing an opponent, you want to look at someone who is your match, right? I mean, a grown man can speak a young boy to a fight. It doesn't work that way. So that's why I said it starts with a young boy. So I mean, it's these people in this age range wrestle first before it moves to people in the older age range. So when it when in the circle, so usually in the circle, because it's in circles, yeah, right? It's form a circle and they'll be dancing around with the beats of the drums. And when the drum stops, there's a way the drum communicates. So you know that okay, maybe this is action time. So someone from that group picks his match. You pick someone who is your match. I mean, you pick someone who, oh, okay, I think I can defeat this person. I think this is my match, and the wrestling begins. So if you defeat that person, you move to a stronger opponent, still in your in that's your range, right? I mean, it can't wrestle with someone who is clearly obvious that this is a no match for you. So that is how it goes until the strongest in that group is it's
And then
selected.
it's okay. That was my next question. Like, what happens to the winner? Do they go on to wrestle somebody else? And you already answered that. That's amazing. There's drums involved in the wrestling. So I wonder, is there anything special that the wrestlers are wearing? Do they dress a certain way when they're in the circle, or does each group of male participants dress a certain way? Do the drummers dress a certain way?
In present day, they don't dress like how they would have dressed in the past. I mean, it's just somehow. So, the chest is bare chest. The rest of it bare chest with just shorts for the wrestlers. Then the drummers, no, they don't. They don't dress a specific way unless it is like a festive fest. Okay, like maybe the opening ceremony of the wrestling. So you see, okay, they would maybe dressed in the cultural attire with the caps and all of that. But on a normal occasions, it's just casual,
Okay.
right? So yeah, the wrestlers on bare chest with just shorts, and sometimes there's okay when there's a winner, powder is sprayed on the person, and those victory for victory. Yeah.
Okay. I had to ask because I know wrestlers all over the world present themselves in different ways. So I was wondering if there was any specific presentation about this about this wrestling that happens. Talking about the masks, I'd love to know what they're made out of.
Mostly wood. So
Okay.
they're mostly carved out of wood. Yeah, mostly carved out of wood. So we have a mask, then also accompanying it. So after wearing the mask, there's usually a piece of clothes that goes with it. And then there's the jingles. So there's this footwear that makes it when it steps, it makes this sound. So it's one on both foot. And then there's a raffia leaves are also used to adorn, if you can see them, yeah. So also raffia leaves are also used to adorn the person putting on the mask, right? So depending on the kind of mask, so we have different masks too. So the mask for the Ubukele is quite different. It's very colorful. And for that one, the person putting it on dressing is very colorful clothing with that headgear, right? The headgear is usually very long. So since it's depicting aquatic animals, so you can have something like the crocodile, it's long. Can
Ooh.
have some other aquatic creatures. Yeah. So for that of the Obukele, it's it's a very colorful masquerade ceremony. It's quite different from the Owu. And for Obukele, it's not Obukele is not you don't have violent masquerade there. You can watch Obukele peacefully. It's you don't have any you won't feel so scary or you don't have a need to run. But for that of the Owu, you have a whole lot of display from different masquerades. So I mean, it's usually gets intense at some point. Yeah.
Mm, hmm. Okay. Now, who in the community has the privilege of wearing these masks or certain masks? Like the one that you said was really scary, and that mask is you see it every year, at the same time every year. Who gets to wear that mask?
But in my community, I mean, certain families wear some certain masquerade. I mean, it's more like it's a family thing. It is owned by this family, right? So when it's time for it, that person that always wears it in that family comes up to wear it. So and most persons have worn it to their old age, and most of them have passed away. And maybe somebody else in the family had to take it up. Probably a son or maybe a close relation had to wear it. So I think it belongs to a specific family, right? So maybe I don't know the history behind it. I really can't say, but I don't, maybe it's weird for a different family to wear this mark that this family is known for. I mean, most persons don't know, like a lot of young persons don't know who or who wears it, but I got to know because I heard my grandmom talking about it. So they know that, oh, this family, this mass belongs to this family. Maybe it has been handed over to them for certain years. So when it's time, they wear it and they come to display. So I
Hmm.
think it's more like a family thing.
Okay. Okay. Is there any kind of prestige or something in the community when you are the family that's wearing this mask, or you are the family that's presenting a different mask? Like, is it looked upon as more prestigious if you are the family for one mask or a family for another mask, or does it not matter?
I think, yeah, it matters. Yeah, it matters. It's a thing of prestige. I see it as people may look at it differently, but I see it as um this family has been able to sustain this culture, right? For it to move down from one ancestor to the other, and you are still maintaining that. I mean, it's a legacy. It's a legacy for the family. People may have a different opinion on this, but I mean, this is my personal opinion. This is what I think. So yeah, a legacy for the family. Yeah.
Who do you think is currently the most prestigious one?
Um, um, it's the Obukel. Sorry, it's the Obumadu Bay for me.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want you to have to choose who's the most prestigious, but thank you for saying that that's who you think for you is the more prestigious mask and the more prestigious legacy that happens in the community. What about food? What are we eating? What are some of the typical dishes that you would find in Ekpe community? Are there things that everyone thinks they have the best version of or they make the best version of? What are some things like that, or maybe some traditions around food?
So ogbolo is fufu. You know it as fufu. It's known as fufu. So it's made from cassava, fermented cassava, um, pounded very well. And then the mechede, it goes with the soup, which we call mechede. It's a cocoyam soup. So it's made with cocoyam and oil palm fruit, right? So we have blend of both and the dry fish and we have the periwinkles. I mean, the soup is very delicious. It goes with, so yeah, this is our signature meal. Every Ekpeye person, this is our signature meal. And we serve this during occasions, during marriage ceremonies, during funerals, and even during festivals. Yeah. Another one is the okoso. Okoso. So it's is it like would I say an appetizer or so when we have guests, the first thing we serve before the main meal, we give you cola and we give you okoso. So okoso is made from dry fish. It's made from dry fish. So it is grounded and it's there's chili is added to it and seasoning cubes and what else. So this is grounded together and presented to you. It usually goes with garden egg. So this is more like the first thing to present to a guest along with palm wine, of course, or any other drink before the actual meal. And for this okoso, I don't think I have seen it outside of my tribe.
Hmm.
Maybe I haven't, maybe I haven't seen, but yeah, I don't think I have seen it anywhere else. Yeah, so far. So I mean, this is peculiar to Ekpeye people. And okay, maybe the Obas will have it. The Obas are from the same ancestry as us, also in River State. I think they would have it, but yes, it's not common amongst other ethnic groups in Nigeria.
Hmm. Is it spicy? Is it sweet? Is it salty? What does it taste like?
It's spicy. It's fish. I mean, it's fish, dry fish. So you have fish. Oh, how do I describe this fish so you understand? Okay, so it's completely dried fish.
Hmm.
So instead of eating the fish whole, we have it's grounded. So we pound it with the mortar and a pestle, so it comes out as a powder, right? So pepper has been added to it, so it's spicy, and most persons add onions. So it's pounded together, the complete mix with some seasoning cubes. So you just have it, and I mean, it's really, really
That
nice.
sounds really, really nice. Spicy and it's fish. Yeah, I want to try
Yeah,
it.
you wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Franca, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
As I said, I will share links to your platform and to your resources in the show notes for this episode. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about your language and your culture. I want to ask you one last question. I end the show with this question in every episode, just to have a little bit of fun. Do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, proverbs, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Ekpeye to share and to teach us?
So I want to share this piece of advice. Iya imele kadeze ununu eluma veluma. So whatever you're doing, keep moving forward. You will get there. So kade eluma kade. So it's actually from a song, an Ekwe song. So it's an advice for is to keep moving forward. Don't quit. Don't stop. Kade ununu. Eduma beduma.
I love that. Can you teach it to me?
Yes, sure.
Let's go syllable by syllable
E-
and I'll repeat after you when you say it and I'm gonna take notes so I can keep it in my memory.
Kade.
Kade,
Kade.
ade,
So iya imele.
iye,
Iya yi. Iya yi.
iye,
Iya imele.
mele, iye, mele,
Yes. Mele. Mele.
mede,
CHE. De.
mede.
Iya imele.
Okay.
Iya imele kadeze ununu. Kade. Kadeze ununu. Iya imele
Iye,
kadeze
mede,
ununu.
iye, mede,
Kadeze ununu.
kade zununu,
Eduma beduma.
edu,
Eduma bu eduma.
eguma, my eguma,
Eduma bu eduma.
edumabu,
Eduma bu eduma.
edumabu, uduma?
Yes.
Okay.
So kade means yes, kade means go. Keep going. So yeah, imele kade zunu. So whatever you do, keep going forward. Don't stop. Don't quit. So eduma beduma, you will get there. You will get there. So yeah, keep going. Keep moving.
I love that. And I think we could all use that in our lives. Anyone who's striving to do
Yes.
something different or better for themselves, that's very useful. Well, thank you so much again for this conversation. And before I let you go, just one quick last question. In this situation where you're talking with someone for a long time, you're enjoying the conversation with them, you're learning from them. In Ekpeye, what is the best way? Oh, but I forgot to say, you're enjoying the conversation, but you now have to go your separate ways. So you're leaving, you're saying goodbye. In Ekpeye, what is the best way to say goodbye?
Ekize, ekiduma. But usually when you're leaving like a place, but in the case of a virtual meeting like this, I would say Owetagodo. Okay, in Pidgin, I think Pidgin captures it better. So see near they finish. That means you this was not the last time we would see your cover, like we would see again soon, right? But literally it translates to like it's a pidgin translation now gets it very well. So see near they finish, meaning this is not the last time I'm seeing you. Definitely I will keep seeing you again. We will still connect again on this space or the social media or somewhere else. So yes,
Way to go, Franca. Thank you so much again for this conversation, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Masoye.
Bye.